Yeah, lovely to see all of you here. Lovely to be in a full shrine room. I'm just standing up for a moment so I can look at all of you and all your happy, smiling faces. Those of you who are on the retreat, can all see that you are already starting to look a little bit different from when Suryanaga and I saw you on Saturday afternoon. And it's just welcome back to the center, and I hope you're having a very good urban retreat. And also, if you're joining us online, welcome to you too, and welcome to the urban retreat. We're going to start off with a meditation, an arriving meditation, just shifting gears from whatever gear we've been operating in today at the start of the week to a kind of more neutral gear, getting ready for the evening. So when you're ready, just set yourselves up in meditation position. And so we have set up the shrine room, but if you don't have the right cushions, obviously feel free to ask somebody to pass you different cushions, or get yourselves up and get the right meditation gear. Yeah, now's the time to get what you need. So settling into stillness, and once you've found your posture, closing your eyes. Starting to settle down, starting to calm down. Having a sense of the shape that you're making in space, how you've placed yourselves on the cushions or the chair. And you might need to make micro adjustments to set yourselves up in a posture that's relaxed and alert. Now let's start to bring more specific awareness to different parts of our body. First of all, feeling into our face. With your eyes closed, can you notice what expression you've been wearing all this time? And if you notice any holding on in the forehead and the eyebrows, or around the mouth and jaw, see if you might be able to relax that holding. Feeling down your neck into your shoulders, relaxing the shoulders. Feeling down your arms into your hands. Our hands really know how to meditate. Noticing sit bones against cushion or sit bones against chair. Giving our weight fully to our supports and allowing the ground to rise up to meet us. Now taking our attention into the chest, into the belly. Allowing the belly to be soft and the chest cavity to be open. And moving into the first stage of the Metta Bhavana, cultivating a sense of loving kindness for your own self. And moving into the final stage of the Metta Bhavana, cultivating metta for everyone in this room, people in your life, all beings. Yeah, so do sit at ease. You might want to come out of meditation position. We will be meditating again before the tea break, so you might just want to save your knees and your hips. Actually, all of you are very quiet and still in the shrine, which is a gorgeous atmosphere. Yeah, and I hope it was quiet and still in your mind as well. But just in case it wasn't, I'm going to be saying a little bit about preoccupations and distractions. Yeah. So talk for about 10 minutes or so now, and then we'll meditate again. One of the things I've been reflecting on since the summer, in the summer I led this retreat at our beautiful retreat center called Triratna, and it was the first time I'd been on a long retreat, sort of post the pandemic, with quite a lot of other people. It's the first time, like not really doing an online retreat or a solitary retreat or a smaller retreat. This was sort of over 50 of us in our very, very beautiful retreat center in Suffolk. And it was a very, very strong retreat. And one of the sort of stories I was telling about the Buddha, who we'll hear a bit more about the historical Buddha, I was telling the story about him teaching meditation to somebody who wasn't his follower, but who became his follower. And he sort of said very, very clearly, very sort of strongly, nothing is worth clinging to. Yeah, he just says nothing is worth clinging to. And then he sort of goes on to then tell this person what he should reflect on. But that line, nothing is worth clinging to, has stayed with me since the summer, and I have been coming back to it again and again. And I think I've been particularly reflecting on it in my life, so when things happen that I don't want, or sometimes when things happen that I do want, I've been reflecting on it. And I also have been reflecting on it in meditation, particularly when I get distracted, when I get preoccupied. I'm sure I'm not the only one who gets preoccupied by stuff in meditation. I'm probably not the only one who tries to write emails in meditation and sort out my email inbox. I think my Gmail app tells me that I've got 500 unread emails. Anyway, at some point it was 400. You can tell I'm not a very organized person. So I tend to get really preoccupied by stuff, sort of unfinished business or worries, anxieties, difficulties I might have with people, or things that I want from others, or want out of my life, or want out of situations. Very, very easy to do that in meditation, and also very easy to sort of somehow give up working on it as well. So I've just been applying this it's not worth clinging to. Nothing is worth clinging to, and certainly not that. Certainly not emails that I don't want, or conversations that I need to have. Definitely not in the meditative space. There is a time to think and plan, but if I'm doing that in meditation, it won't actually help my life. All that will happen is I'll just get frustrated with myself, because I feel like I can't really meditate, and then actually the meditation time isn't actually effective. So what I've been trying to cultivate instead is a willingness to let go of my preoccupations. Sometimes I just think, I just ask myself, is that really what I want to be doing with the next 20 minutes? Where is this really going to end up? And then on the flip side of that, I notice a certain sort of very, very subtle sort of lack of trust in myself, that I sort of don't quite believe that there is, if I allow myself to let go of the preoccupations, I don't quite trust that there is more depth. But I know there is. We all probably have, if we're in this room, we've meditated a few times, and hopefully you will have had a glimpse of depth, even if it's for a split second, or some of you will have longer glimpses. Maybe you've been on an intensive retreat. There is depth if you're willing to let go of the surface of your mind. Yeah. So I want to offer two images. One is that of an ocean, and usually, if you take the ocean as an image for mind, usually we're sort of caught up in the ups and downs of the waves. The wind blows, it whips up the surface. Sometimes it's like really, really stormy and we're just going through lots and lots of stuff. Sometimes it's kind of like quite calm. You get these like tiny little waves and you're sort of like just bobbing along and quite sort of like happily going from like one little nice thought to another little nice thought to another little nice thought. And it's sort of like quite nice, you're not sort of in the throes of your ups and downs. But whether, it's like a very dramatic thing that's happening, or even if it's like a quite nice, pleasant, frittering away, not very difficult thing, if we're able to let go of the surface of our minds, actually there's a lot of depth, yeah? There's a lot of depth. So if you cultivate a willingness to let go, and trust that there is depth, a different kind of mind can open up. So that's one image. So if depth appeals to you, maybe you can go with that image. The other image that I have is one which maybe it's kind of like the opposite of height. And if you think of the mind like the sky, sometimes our mind's very, very clear. There's no clouds. Sometimes it's just sort of like covered over with clouds and there's no blue, yeah? And sometimes it's sort of like wavers between the two. And our distractions, our preoccupations are like clouds, yeah? And we're so preoccupied with the clouds that we forget that the true nature of mind is actually the infinite blue sky. And if we're able to just remember that we're not clouds, our true nature is blue sky, and trust in that, and be willing to sort of let go of cloud, and just remember blue sky is behind that. And that blue sky is completely unblemished, infinite, expansive, spacious, and also warm. Yeah? Okay. That makes sense to people? Yeah? Okay. So I'd like us to meditate again. We've done some mindfulness practice, and we've also done some metta-bhavana practice. So maybe I'll just leave it open to you what you do. You might want to do another period of metta-bhavana, maybe do the full 5 stages. Or you might want to do mindfulness practice, do a mindfulness of breathing practice where you're following the breath. But the main thing that you might want to do in your practice is just really like notice preoccupation and just be willing to let go and trust in depth and trust in the blue sky-like nature of mind. Good. So just ring a bell at the beginning and at the end. And we'll be meditating for just under 25 minutes. calming down, settling into posture again. If you haven't already, decide on the practice that you need to do, want to do. And commit to the practice. Starting to let go of any effort you're making to concentrate, to cultivate metta. To focus on the breath. And whether or not you are preoccupied doesn't matter. Just notice how you are now. Okay, very good. So that's the end of the first half of the evening. So what's going to happen now is we'll just have a tea break. Tea and chocolate biscuits if you're here at the LBC. If you're at home, hopefully you too have chocolate biscuits. And I'll stay and chat to people online, so if you're online, you might want to make yourself a cup of tea and just come back. And then everyone else can just make their way into the mural room. Okay, so yeah, really, really nice to see where you're from if you're online. Great that we've got people all the way from Texas. Oh, and Norfolk and Tooting. Yeah, so if you were meditating with us earlier, maybe you could just say how your meditation was. It'd be nice to hear if you managed to work a little bit with preoccupation. Yeah, I hope somebody's saving me a chocolate biscuit as well. I did put in a tea order. My tea order was for peppermint tea with soya milk, which is my favorite tea here at the London Buddhist Centre. Yeah. If you've ever been to the London Buddhist Centre, you'll know that there's a fire exit just to my right. Just opening the fire exit to get some air in. Yeah. London Buddhist Centre is right next to a fire station and a police station. But just in case if you hear any siren noises from outside, that's why. Oh yeah, here comes Annie with a chocolate biscuit. Thank you very much. And my tea, thank you. No, it's great, thanks. Yes, I've got my milky peppermint tea now. Hi, Gary. Yeah, so Gabor's asking whether music can be an aid to meditation. I don't know, Gabor. I've never tried meditating to music. What sort of music do you listen to when you meditate? Matt's actually in the room with me. Do you meditate to music, Matt?
Rarely.
Rarely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a musician, but sometimes I do, but very rarely.
Okay. Yeah, Matt, who's in the room with me, you're a jazz drummer.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. What sort of music would you meditate to?
Kind of Indian music.
Like, yeah, Indian music. Yeah.
Like drones.
Drums, yeah. Like tabla music.
Yeah, and like long drones.
Long drones.
Drone, yeah, like Indian.
Okay. That's really cool. Yeah, I've never tried meditating to music, but Matt here has. Good. Yeah, so Patrick's asking whether my preferred visualization is ocean or sky. I think I have a slight preference for sky. Or maybe that's just the image that I've worked with more over the years. This image of the ocean is, well, it's both an old one and also a new one. This image of the ocean sort of arose in my meditation quite spontaneously on my very first retreat. I was thinking quite a lot about swimming into depth on my very first retreat. And then I sort of haven't really come back to it until much more recently. I was reading a book where this image of the ocean and its depths was just evoked very beautifully. So I've been working with that image a little bit more recently. But I think the one of sky and clouds is a little bit more familiar to me. I live in an apartment about 10 minutes walk from the London Buddhist Centre, and I live on the 4th floor, so it's not very high up, but the area of London where I live, just around Bethnal Green here, it's generally quite low rise, so I get quite a big expanse of sky, and I quite like looking at sky. yeah, even like just walking around London, it's been a very, very beautiful, clear day in parts, and just sort of seeing blue sky as I walk around has been lovely. Yeah. Good. That's interesting, Gabor saying ambient electronic music as a thing to listen to. Yeah, it'd be great to hear if other people listen to music. I was thinking that although I don't meditate to music. Sometimes I practice yoga to music, like occasionally, and a little bit like not. I would listen to sort of like classical tabla music, Indian classical music. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else found the sky visualization helpful. Yeah, it's nice, Wendy. You saying that you could feel the depth and the silence. Yesterday here at the Buddhist Center, we were having a silent meditation day from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. As part of the urban retreat. And I didn't come to the silent meditation day because leading the urban retreat, I wanted to do a little bit of prep at home. You know, the sort of usual stuff of getting like little bits of work done, and also prepping my meals for the week. And I was thinking about people here at the Buddhist Center, and like I said, I only live 10 minutes walk down the road. It's almost as if I felt a sense of depth and silence coming from the London Buddhist Center, sort of like I was working at my desk, so somewhat behind me. I could sort of feel the depth emanating from the London Buddhist Center. I do like to think that we can tune into these things, that, you know, it's not just like what we can see or what we can feel or what we can sort of measure with scientific instruments, that there's kind of energy and grace waves, and if we tune into people meditating, we too can feel the effects of it. Oh yeah, nice to hear about people who enjoy the sky image. Oh yeah, so Woosley's saying that they like the blue sky, but then they get hooked on the question of outer space beyond the blue sky. And I think that's a very, very interesting reflection, Woosley, because the thing about blue sky and space is that there isn't a point where blue sky becomes space. You know, it's sort of like one continuum. If you keep moving towards blue sky, it just becomes infinite space. And again, traditionally, that's part of the metaphor. That's why the sky is used as metaphor for mind, because the mind's potential is infinite, just like the sky in space is infinite. Yeah. Yeah. Just reading your comments. Yeah, the other thing about so it's an image that's closely related to clouds passing through is leaves falling. One of my friends who's a meditation teacher, both a Buddhist meditation teacher, and she also teaches secular mindfulness, talks about the image of leaves falling, and it might be quite a good image now that we're going into autumn. So Sylvia's in the room with me now, and she's sort of manning the tech. How was your meditation, Sylvia? Yeah? Yeah. Did you find the sky or ocean helpful? maybe neither. Did you find sky or ocean helpful?
Yeah, I was never actually thought to attention.
Mm. Mm.
I always looked at the sky somehow
Mm-hmm.
every morning, but I never actually put attention to, oh yes, sky, clouds.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think the sky meditation is quite interesting. Is anyone else besides me eating chocolate biscuits and drinking tea? You can put in the chat if you're like having a meal. One of the things of coming to teach at the Buddhist Center is that I tend to have very, very early meals. So I eat at about 6 o'clock. If I'm coming to teach, sometimes even a little bit earlier than 6, sometimes like 5:30. And when I tell people who aren't Buddhists or or not yogis, they sort of like look at me strange, like I keep children's meal times or something. I eat really early. Okay. Oh, cheese and biscuits. That sounds nice. Is it vegan cheese or cheese, Charlie? Yeah, so Melanie's asking about Buddhist books, so I don't know if people might want to put their favorite Dharma books into the chat as well. Peppermint tea and soya milk is it smells quite well. It's not really wild. I don't know where you are, Wendy, but in the UK, there's a chocolate called Arrow. It's basically like chocolate with like some kind of bubbly chocolate. Anyway, it's got this mint flavor, mint Arrow, and peppermint and soya milk taste like a minty Arrow. I've never come across it before I moved to the UK, and then when I was at university, the minty Arrows were always available in my faculty vending machine. When I was at university, probably because no one else liked it, and they was never sold out. So I ate a lot of mint Arrows, and peppermint and soya milk taste like a minty Arrow. Yeah. So, what are good Dharma books? Good Dharma book recommendations? No, not about being good. It's getting a couple of recommendations. It's quite a good book. Yeah. Yeah, Maitra Bandhu's book, Not About Being Good, not about being good, Life with Full Attention, is a book that I use a lot myself. I teach from a lot. Also, The Journey and the Guide. It's another book by Maitra Bandhu. So Life with Full Attention, Journey and the Guide, and Not About Being Good are books that we use for courses here at the London Buddhist Center. But you don't have to just read it like a course book. They are based on courses here at the Buddhist Center, but they're just very, very good practical Buddhist books. Subhuti's got quite a few books actually. Charlie was talking about Subhuti's books. One that a lot of people seem to like is Mind and Harmony. So Subhuti's got a book called Mind and Harmony, which talks about mental events. It's a commentary on a commentary on a commentary about the 51, or maybe it's 52 mental states contained in the Abhidharma. So that's Subhuti's Mind and Harmony. the original, the commentary that Subhuti is basing it off is Sangharakshita's book, and that's called Know Your Mind. So those two books are quite good when they're read in conjunction with each other. It basically talks about mind and mental events, positive mental events like metta, which we've been trying to cultivate this evening, awareness, neutral mental events, but also negative mental events like anger, hate. There's one that's in Pali, the Buddhist language, is maraksha, which I quite like. Maraksha is slyness, concealment. So when you've like done something and you don't want other people to know about it, it's like slyness, concealment. And both Subhuti and Sangharakshita have quite a lot to say about that. Yeah. Yeah, Bhante Sangharakshita's Guide to the Buddhist Path. That's a very, very good book as well. I think that was one of the first Buddhist books that I bought. Yeah, John Kabat-Zinn's books are kind of mindfulness textbooks, really. Yeah. Yeah, he's very, very, very well known in secular mindfulness, and he's helped a lot of people. The London Buddhist Center has a secular meditation teaching program called Breathing Space, and it helps people not relapse into depression and to deal with stress and anxiety, amongst other things. We do refer to a lot of John Kabat-Zinn's material in those courses. Oh, Tales of Freedom by Vasandra. That's great. Yeah, Tales of Freedom by Vasandra is really, really good. I mean, Vasandra is an author of quite a few books. He's also got this sort of set of books which are guides to Buddha figures, so different Buddha figures, archetypal Buddha figures, male and female, to the extent that you can have male or female Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I'm going to be teaching a little bit from Vasandra's material tomorrow, particularly female deities in Tantric Buddhism. So just a little sort of ad for my talk tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about green Tara. Yeah, so I just want to let you guys know that in a moment we're going to be starting again. They're just telling about the winter retreats next door in the tea break room. But also I just really want to ask you all to think about, maybe not even just think about, but to actually set up standing orders to the London Buddhist Center. So if you don't already give regularly to the London Buddhist Center, I just want to really encourage you to think about that. One of the things that I've been talking to Maitra Bandhu about, so he's like a very good friend of mine, he's a colleague, he's a teacher, is about participation in Sangha. And particularly online, it's like, how do we sort of feel part of a Sangha? How do we sort of feel part of a community? And I think a lot of it is by supporting. So you can support the London Buddhist Center in many ways. You can tell your friends about it. You can like and subscribe. That's a very, very helpful way, very sort of easy, kind of cheap way to help other people find the London Buddhist Center. So you can, all of you now, you could just like this video, and it just means that it'll go up in other people's YouTube feeds as well. So liking and subscribing is a very easy way to help other people find us and to support the London Buddhist Center, especially if you do like our content. And also you can set up a standing order to the London Buddhist Center. make a regular donation to the London Buddhist Center. So I'm a volunteer. Sylvia and Brian, who are in the room with me, they're also volunteers. Everyone who teaches here at the London Buddhist Center basically gives their time for free. So the money doesn't go to us. And in a way, you know, this beautiful shrine that we've got, the kind of, the tech equipment, somebody else has paid for it. But if you do make a standing order, if you do give a donation to the London Buddhist Center, it just means that other people can find us. It means that we can continue doing what we do, and other people can find us. You know, so your £25. So I'm suggesting that you give £25 a month to the Buddhist Center. Your £25 will mean that somebody who's never even heard of the London Buddhist Center and could probably never even thank you will be able to experience something of I don't know, their minds, maybe depth, connection, friendship, maybe even transform their lives completely from a gift that you make. Yeah. So Sylvia's put the link to our donation in the chat. So I just really want to encourage you, if you can, to give to it, give to the center. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, if you do give regularly to the Buddhist Center, you know, do let us know as well. You know. The funny thing about online, we can't sort of like, I mean, obviously you get an email, thank you, but we don't sort of personally thank you in a way. One of my favorite things to do at the center is to hold a bowl as people walk into the center. It sort of feels really traditional, like, you know, sort of like, well, obviously I'm not a nun, but you know, monks and nuns go around in Buddhist countries just holding a bowl, and people put food or money into their bowls, and often I'm standing greeting people holding this bowl, and people put money in, and we're able to thank them personally, and that's just like such a beautiful thing. Immediately we're connected. Yeah. Okay, I have one chocolate biscuit left. It's a bourbon, but I think I won't eat it. I will save it for after the class. Good. So tonight we're going to be hearing a little bit more in the second half about Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha of our particular Buddha dispensation. Be interested to know, actually, if no one's ever heard of Shakyamuni, or you know, whether people know a little bit or a lot about Shakyamuni. Yeah, be interesting to hear what people know about the historical Buddha. So again, you can just put that into the chat. Whether Shakyamuni as a figure is familiar to you or not. I don't know, perhaps Sylvia, you might just want to, can you change where the camera is and like point to the Buddha? Be great if you can see our beautiful shrine. Maybe even like the whole of it. Yeah, Woozley was asking about the Green Tara talk. Yeah, just like this one's, this talk this evening is going to be on our YouTube channel. Well, it is on our YouTube channel. That's why you're watching us. Tomorrow the talk will also be on YouTube. Oh, don't be sad, Melanie. hopefully after this evening you'll know more about Shakyamuni. Oh, it's beautiful. So you can see the whole shrine now, and people are just coming in. So in a moment, I'll just get off this plinth, and Suryanaga will join us. But I just want to say that Ruth Coutinho built this beautiful shrine for us. Okay, here comes Suryanaga. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good. So, yes, welcome from me. My name's Suryanaga. So, so we're going to be talking about Shakyamuni this evening. Shakyamuni is the figure on the shrine there, at the bottom. It's also the historical Buddha. Yeah, we call Shakyamuni the historical Buddha. And this week, what we're doing is we're going around these 5 figures that Bhante Sangharaskshita, the founder of the Triratna Buddhist order that we're part of, those of us with cases are in the Triratna Buddhist order. He died just under 3 years ago, 3 years on Saturday, in fact. And before he died, he asked for these 5 mantras, these 5 particular mantras of these 5 particular figures, these 5 emanations, you could say, kind of forms of the Buddha to be chanted at the time of his death. So each evening this week, we're going to be giving a talk. Each one of us, the 5 teachers that are leading the urban retreat, will be giving a talk about each one of those 5 figures. And most of those figures are kind of mythic, kind kind of legendary figures, kind of forms of the Buddha. You couldn't really say that they are historical people. They were never born, they never died. That's true for the four figures over the next 4 days. But that's not true for Shakyamuni. So Shakyamuni, or the person who we now call Shakyamuni, did exist. He is the person that usually when people say the Buddha and they talk about someone who lived and died, they're talking about Shakyamuni. It wasn't his real name, but it's who they're talking about. So I'll go into all of that. I'll be kind of talking about basically giving the kind of story of his life today. And it's a very, as you can kind of imagine if you don't know, it's a very, very common thing to do in the Buddhist tradition, is to kind of tell the story, the life story of the Buddha, or give stories of the Buddha in general, particularly on retreat. And so we're on the urban retreat, and so it's very, very appropriate for us to be having a story, a life story of the Buddha. But I want to start actually just by kind of checking, finding out. I'm kind of just curious actually to find out from you, particularly those of you who are maybe newer, how many of you have never either listened to a talk on the Buddha's life story or read a book on the Buddha's life story? And by book, I'll maybe include something like Wikipedia. So how many of you have never done that? Okay, it's about maybe 5 or 6 of you, something like that. So, okay, great. So of those of you who've just put your hand up, I'm really, really curious to know what you know about the Buddha. So sorry to put you on the spot, but like, what do you know about the Buddha? Just maybe those kind of 6 or so of you you've just put up your hands. Just shout out kind of anything that you know about the Buddha.
I can't say much really.
Sure.
I've just been to the LBC a few times, and I came back on a retreat like yesterday, and we've just been learning about, I guess, the values and the Dharma. But like the Buddha specifically, I couldn't tell you much.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything at all? I've said a few things already, but
he reached enlightenment.
okay.
Soon,
Yeah.
meditation.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Actually, I'll stretch out the conversation, the question a little bit. Anything you think you know? Don't worry if it's wrong. Anything else other than that he's the Buddha and that he reached enlightenment? Do you know what country he was born in? See, this is really interesting, right? I find this really fascinating because you've definitely heard of the Buddha, right? You've heard of the Buddha. You've seen statues of the Buddha, probably in like a spa, right? As well as the Buddha Center. Yeah, go on.
I think I know one fact.
Yeah.
That he originally came from a high status position, but when he saw human suffering in the world, he gave all that up.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so yeah, he came from a high status family, and when he saw suffering in the world, he gave all that up. Yeah, great. That's I mean, that's like most of my talk, so we can just leave it there, basically. So that's kind of like some of the big kind of points of his life story, which I'll go into. But it's really interesting to me, I think, that the Buddha lived 2,500 years ago, and we sort of have a bit of just a very, very vague sense in this country, really, so like Buddhists like the Buddha, but we don't really know much about him. Most people are like, is he a god? Was he was he we just don't know much about him. We don't even know kind of where he's from. But he was a man in history. He lived. He was born and lived in India, or the country we now think of as India, 2,500 years ago. And I'll just kind of repeat the ones that we've kind of heard already. So he was born into a high status family. He did reach, kind of turn away from the world, and we'll go into what that means, when he kind of saw the fact of suffering, and he reached enlightenment. And maybe I'll say something about what that means as well. And then he died. So actually, I'm going to kind of start carry on by talking about his death. It's a bit like when you watch a movie and they start at the end. I'm going to do that. So he died, and that's really important because one of the things is that it shows that he wasn't a god. He was a person. He was a human, like us. So when he died, by the time he died, he had built up lots and lots of followers, and some of those followers were also enlightened. Some of them weren't. And I won't go into too much about his death and how it happened. Basically, he died of food poisoning. So it's pretty kind of normal way to die, especially in that time and sort of place. And I think the really, really important thing about his death is, it's not so much, there's lots of things that are important about kind of what he said at the time of his death. But what I want to say something about is what his friend said. So he had this friend, kind of companion, it's actually his cousin, who was called Ananda. And Ananda had been with the Buddha for, kind of helping the Buddha with kind of everything that he needed for many, many years before his death. And it's said that Ananda kind of like saw kind of the Buddha in every sort of type of situation, when he was kind of like kind of grumpy in the not when he was grumpy, when he was in the morning, when he went to sleep, he was there throughout his whole life. I've been living with my teachers for the last kind of few years, and so I can really tell you it's quite a thing to live with your teachers, because you really, really do see them in every sort of light, and it gives you a really quite kind of intimate knowledge of who they are as a person when you live with them. And Ananda travelled around with the Buddha, seeing him in every sort of light. And when he died, or when he was just about to die, Ananda, everybody was kind of crowded around, the Buddha's going to die. He was lying there, about to die. And Ananda wasn't to be found in the crowd. And the Buddha said, "Where's Ananda?" And he was kind of off somewhere. He was outside of wherever they were. And he was crying. And somebody kind of went and said, like, come in, like the Buddha's dying, and he's asking for you. You need to come in. And he kind of, I'm kind of just imagining he was kind of choking back tears at this point. Just said, basically he can't believe that the Buddha's dying. And then he said, "He who is so kind." And that was the phrase that he kind of had at that moment to sum up this whole kind of life of living with his teacher. And I mean, in a way, like, lots of people say people are kind when they're dying, don't they? It's quite nice to say people are kind. But there's loads of things he could have said about the Buddha. He could have said, he who reached supreme enlightenment before anybody else did. Like, he could have said, he who has seen through the distinction of subject and object. There's loads of things he could have said about the Buddha, but that was the main thing he wanted to say. And so I kind of just wanted to say that before I say anything else about the Buddha's life, because I think it's important to bear in mind where it was all headed, where what it kind of ended up as, and in a way how the person who saw him the closest saw what that attainment was, what it looked like from the outside, because most of the Buddha's story really is kind of what it looked like from the inside. We're trying to get into what it looks like from the inside, but it's very important to remember what did it look like from the outside as well. So that's what it looked like from the outside. So I'm going to go back now to the start of his life. So you're absolutely right. He was born into kind of affluence. We'd maybe think of it now. Often people say that he was born. He was the son of a king, I just heard recently actually that he. It's possibly more historically accurate to say that he was, or it's likely more historically accurate to say that actually his father was an elected president. And I'll just say something about kind of historical accuracy here. I'm not going to actually pay that much attention to historical accuracy when I'm talking about the Buddha's life, and partly because I don't think it's, I'm not really a historian. Apologies to any historians in the room, but I don't really feel like that's the most important thing about the Buddha's story, although it's kind of what sets this kind of talk apart from the rest of the week. I think it's more important to take the symbolic value of this story. So actually it's probably more better to think that he was or easier to think, or in whatever, to think of the Buddha's father as the king, and that he was the son of the king. But also when I say kind of it's more important to take the symbolic value, I'm not saying, just think of it as a metaphor, he was the son of a king, and that's a metaphor for the fact that he was actually the son of a president. We need to think of the symbolic value for what that's saying about our lives, not so much about what it's saying about this person who lived 2,500 years ago. I'm not going to try and decode all of these symbols all the way through. I'm going to leave that to you, yeah? So work out what it means for your life whilst I'm talking. So he was the son of the king, let's say that. And he was prophesied when he was born, to become either a very great kind of emperor that would rule over kind of the many lands, the many surrounding lands, or become a holy man. And so his father thought, well, I'm not having my son become a holy man. I'm having him become a great emperor, a great king. And so what he did, he took a little bit of an extreme step of kind of closing off his son, who, by the way, is called Siddhartha. Siddhartha Gautama is his real name, his historical name. He closed off Siddhartha from the rest of the world. He said, he kept him in his palace and didn't let him go out of that palace, but provided for him everything that he would possibly need in this palace. And I will say something actually about how I sort of relate to that anyway. We might not feel like we're kind of we've been closed off, but we can close ourselves off sometimes, and particularly this idea of everything you could possibly need. So the tradition talks about how the Buddha had dancing girls and like lotus ponds and beautiful feasts of food and all of the rest of it. I I've never been in that sort of situation, being in a palace, but I do think sometimes when I'm sat at home and I've got like, you know, my laptop with Netflix and like, you know, the possibility, I used to have a job where that paid me quite well. I don't anymore, but I used to have a job that paid me quite well, and I definitely had enough money where I could be like, oh, actually, I'm not going to cook tonight. I'm going to get Deliveroo. I don't know if anybody else has had this, but when you get to that kind of point, and actually we're in this situation in a society quite a lot at the moment, for a lot of us, even if you don't have that sort of money where you can just get a takeaway whenever you feel like it, we do have a lot of stuff kind of on tap, even if we just have an internet connection. A lot of kind of pleasure, a lot of kind of entertainment, a lot of kind of like our base kind of needs are just like on tap and fulfilled. And so although we might kind of think, oh, pleasure palace, yeah, that would be nice, we I think need to look a little bit at like how much maybe we have that more than maybe we think. I've definitely kind of realised a few times like, oh yeah, actually I do kind of live in a pleasure palace to some extent. Anyway, so the Buddha was kept in this kind of luxury for quite a bit of his life, and he had everything he needed. He grew up. He was trained in martial arts. He was very, very skilled. He had a good education, and then he married. He had a beautiful wife and a child, and he got into kind of his adulthood. And one day he basically got to the point where he was like, okay, I need to actually get out and see what is in the world. And so he went out with a kind of assistant, some sort of, they call it a charioteer. He went out into the kind of local kind of villages or towns or whatever it is. And he saw 4 sites. So these are the kind of famous like 4 sites of Buddhism. So he saw the first of these sites was an old man. So it was somebody who was aging, and they say that because he was locked up in this pleasure palace, he had never seen somebody who was old. He'd never seen old age before. And of course we could take that really literally and say, well, yeah, okay, because he was locked up, and etc. But we also need to look at like, well, there was a point, and maybe there even will be more points in the future of our lives where we will keep seeing old age for the first time. I found my first white hair the other day. That was me seeing old age again. Even though I feel like, I kind of like know old age because like we talk about it in Buddhism. But it is like something like, if for those of you who haven't found your first white hair, it's definitely a thing. Like it's definitely a wake up moment. Some of you will remember it. So he saw old age for the first time. He said to his charioteer, "What's that?" Basically, like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that man? You can kind of imagine, can't you? Like, just like, what is that? And the charioteer sort of said, it's old age. And the Buddha to be said, does that happen to everybody? And the charioteer was like, yeah, that happens to everyone. That happens to, it happens to everybody and it happens to you as well. So the Buddha had a bit of a kind of like, mind blown moment at that point, kind of realizing that he would grow old. So this kind of pattern then happened a couple more times. He then went out again and saw a sick man. He saw somebody who was sick, and you can imagine 2,500 years ago in India, if you saw somebody sick on the street, they'd be very sick. And he had the same sort of conversation, like, is that going to happen to me? Am I going to get sick? And the charioteer was like, yeah, you're going to get sick at some point. That's going to happen. Charioteer is not in the mood for messing about with the Buddha. And the third time he goes out and he sees somebody who's dead. He sees a dead body in the street, which again would have been a common sight at that point. And the same sort of conversation, is that going to happen to me? Am I gonna die? The charioteer says, yeah, you're gonna die. And so the Buddha at this point, he has, he's been dealt some hard truths, and I think I kind of think of this bit of the story as the Buddha having a bit of an existential crisis, I sort of think like most of my life before I came to the Buddhist Center was one long protracted existential crisis, and because it does feel like that, doesn't it? You're kind of like, if that's just where all of this is headed, like it's all just gonna end, and on the way there's gonna be loads and loads of pain and suffering. Like what am I doing? What's the point? Like, and you can even think of like as well this context of him coming from the pleasure palace. Like, why did he leave the pleasure palace in the first place? There must have been this point where he was like, oh, this isn't satisfying, actually, I need something else. So he must have been already realizing that actually you can have all of the things that you want on tap and it's still not enough. It's still not going to be kind of ultimately satisfying. So he must have kind of got to that point to even step outside of the palace, and then he starts saying, oh God, I'm gonna get sick, and I'm gonna get old, and it's gonna be painful, and then I'm gonna die, and like that's gonna be painful, and so like what's the point of anything? And so he's having this kind of real crisis, and I've definitely seen a lot of people go through this kind of situation, this kind of realization in a way. But I think there's a real difference between what happened to the Buddha. I guess the big difference between what happened to the Buddha to be and just the kind of like existential crisis that many of us might have today is that for him it was a glimpse of reality. I think actually in a way for everybody it's a glimpse of reality when we see that, even when we kind of like find our first white hair, it's a glimpse of reality, even if it's a painful one. But what the Buddha had was something else that was kind of like accompanying that. So he had this fourth sight, so he saw a fourth sight, and that was a holy man. So he saw somebody kind of wandering around who was a holy man. And I've never read I've read lots of different forms of the story of the Buddha, and I've never seen any that say that he had any conversation with this holy man, which I think is quite interesting. He just saw him, and that was enough to kind of make the Buddha go, oh, that's what I need to do. Somehow he kind of just was open enough to kind of go, oh yeah, I need to dedicate myself to something that's completely beyond this stuff of that's all gonna go. All of this kind of pleasure that I've been getting in my life, all this luxury, it's all gonna go, and so I need to give all of that up and I need to devote myself to something else. In a way, like, I kind of wonder like how much he knew what that something else was. Probably better than I do. I'm sure it was much better than I do, but I feel like he had a bit of a kind of like, nebulous kind of idea of like, I need to devote my life to something else. So what happened next is that he decides to leave. He decides to leave properly, both the palace and everybody actually that he loves there as well. So his family, and that's quite a thing. It's quite a thing. He didn't want. I think this is important because it's not just that he got sick of it. It's not just like that he got to the point where he was like, oh, actually, like, that's enough Netflix for today. I'm going to go to the Buddhist center. Like, it was like he got to the point where he realized like everything in my life needs to change. Yeah, everything in my life needs to change because this is not working. And he didn't want to do that necessarily. So that sometimes when this story is told, we would talk about that he walked 3 circles around the bed where his wife and child were in before he could bring himself to kind of leave. He was in a real kind of it was a real kind of crisis point for him. But he also knew that he had to find something that kind of goes beyond anything that he knew about this world and how it works. So I'm going to speed up a little bit now. But what happens next is that he becomes a homeless, wandering holy man. And basically he becomes like the best one. So there's this really kind of culture in a way of what we call ascetic practices, which basically means you take spiritual practice, particularly the kind of like aspect of spiritual practice which can be, I guess, very grueling, to extremes where you're even kind of like harming yourself in a certain sort of way. Probably not the right language to kind of use, but so he would, for example, be doing these kind of fasts where he wouldn't be eating. They say he kind of lived on a grain of rice a day, and they say that he would kind of just be kind of meditating for all day and night, and really kind of taking things to the extreme where it was kind of like not good for him. Basically, kind of had this. It's the best way to think of it is that he had a very unhealthy relationship with challenge. Challenge is very, very necessary in the spiritual life. Very, very important, essential. We need to have a relationship, a healthy relationship with challenge in spiritual life. But at this point, he had a bit of a kind of, he took it to the extreme because he felt like this is what I need to do. And also it was kind of in the culture that's what you do when you become a kind of wandering holy man. We have something like a tiny bit of that coming from other religions in our culture, but not really. So, but I do think we need to like think about that in terms of like our relationship with challenge. So he becomes kind of very kind of in a way kind of well known for that. He even has a like small following himself for this kind of ascetic practice. And then he gets to this point where he almost dies. because he's taken these practices right up until their limits, and he realizes at this point, I still haven't gone beyond. Like, I haven't gone beyond suffering. I've just kind of embraced it and not really kind of been able to kind of transcend it. And so he decides, okay, that this isn't the path, and he says that to his friends, his followers. Look, this isn't the path, and they all kind of like reject him and kind of say, look, this is what we do. And he's like, no, this, I've realised this isn't the path, and goes off on his own into the forest and sits down under a tree to meditate, and has this kind of resolve that he's going to sit there and meditate, he's going to sit there, meditate, and somehow get beyond all of this, somehow get beyond suffering, get beyond this kind of situation that we're in, or he'll kind of die trying. Basically, that's the resolution that he makes at that point. And the image on the shrine, the shrine that Ruth has beautifully put together for us, is depicting that kind of that scene. The orb there is the moon, yeah. So he's sitting there under the full moon, and what happens is that he has this memory. There's actually, I'm going to tell what happens next from a couple of different kind of lenses. So firstly, he has this memory. And he has this memory of when he was very kind of young, and a child, 9 years old, I think it is, and he has this memory of watching his father plough the fields, and he thinks, I was just very like happy and content, like sat under the tree. They say that he got into the first jhana at this point. If you know what that is, don't worry if you don't, doesn't matter. But he got into this very sort of blissful, contented state, just sat there kind of watching his father kind of in the fields. And he just didn't want anything, and he was just completely kind of in this kind of moment of just enjoying what was kind of going on. And he kind of recalls that moment, and he recalls the kind of experience of, I guess, kind of blissfulness, of kind of contentedness. And that's kind of, he starts to realise, like, that's the kind of start of my way in to where I kind of need to get to. It's not about this kind of world of pleasure. There's like, filling my life with as much as I can have and as much pleasure I can have. I know that. And it's not about kind of just like turning towards suffering until like, I'm the best person who can turn towards suffering more than anybody else, and almost die from it. It's not either of those things. It's something kind of like above and beyond all of that. So he starts to realise he needs to find what we now kind of refer to as the middle way. And then there's also this, I guess, even more. You could think of it as a more kind of symbolic way of what starts to kind of happen to him, or you could think of it as just a more kind of dramatic way of what happens to him. So he sat there meditating, and this figure, Mara, comes along. And Mara is kind of like the sort of ultimate demon of Buddhism. I think his name is actually kind of synonymous with death. And Mara comes along, and Mara is basically starting to throw everything at the Buddha, saying to the Buddha, look, you're not gonna reach this state of enlightenment, so don't even kind of try. He's trying to kind of put him off in a way with starting to kind of instill doubts into him. And the Buddha's kind of sat there kind of resolutely, like, I'm doing this. He just sits there, and he's just continuing to meditate, going deeper and deeper into his meditation. And then Mara kind of sends his daughters to go and seduce the Buddha. He sends his sons as kind of like these armies to go and attack the Buddha, and they're all kind of starting to shoot arrows at the Buddha, and javelins, and what they say, what the story says, is that when these arrows before they reach the Buddha, these arrows just turn into flowers, and the flowers just drop by his feet. So that's kind of this, what this interaction with Mara is. And then Mara says, Mara's getting really frustrated, and he starts to really kind of go in for this kind of doubt tactic. And so he's then starting to say, look, who do you think you are? You're not gonna, you can't just go beyond suffering. You can't just, who do you think you are to sort of sit there and say that you're going to reach enlightenment? And the Buddha, what he does is he just very, very kind of simply just places his hand on the ground. So the Rupa on the shrine is doing that. So he places his hand on the ground, just touches it with one finger even. When he does that, the earth goddess comes out from the earth and says, I've witnessed this man over countless lifetimes, over thousands, hundreds of thousands of lifetimes, making the effort, living kind of a skillful, virtuous life, striving towards enlightenment. I've witnessed him over countless lifetimes making this effort. So I know that he is kind of worthy of this attainment. And at that, kind of Mara goes away completely. So what we have here is this person in history who has this kind of vision experience that plays out through his whole life, affects his whole life, and plays out into a complete kind of transformation, because he's left as something that is completely beyond our experience of what a kind of normal consciousness is. I'm not going to go into that too much, partly because we're going to go into that quite a lot over the next few days, with the kind of more mythic kind of representations of the Buddha, which really start to go into more of kind of what the Buddha's mind is like in different ways. But what's important, I think, to say is that he had a vision, and then there was a transformation aspect of it, that kind of those poles in a way, vision and transformation. That's just something that I've got from this book, The Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path by Sangharaskshita. And if you want to know more in a way about what happened, if you don't know the Buddha's story very well and you want to know more about kind of what the Enlightenment means in terms of like practical terms of like, okay, so then what did he then teach? I'd recommend this book as like what's the kind of essence of what he then basically tries to communicate to people. But I mention it there because the original title for that book was Vision and Transformation. So there's these two aspects of the Buddha's story. He had this vision experience and then he completely transformed. And then he told people, this is how you transform, basically. This is the way that you move towards enlightenment. Okay, good. So I'm going to leave it there tonight, but what we're going to do is we're going to close the class with a mantra. We're going to chant the Shakyamuni mantra. If you were here this morning, you'll know that we chanted it this morning and yesterday as well on the silent meditation day. And just to say, each morning we're chanting each one of these kind of mantras. So do come along to the morning. Come at 7 a.m. I know it's early, but yeah. Well, a bit of challenge is good, isn't it? We know that now. So yeah, come along for 7 a.m. By 7 a.m. the doors will close at 7, and we'll be chanting the mantra of Green Tara tomorrow, and we'll be hearing about Green Tara, this very, very different. She's a female form of the Buddha. Danyuta will be talking about Green Tara tomorrow. So yeah, so let's settle into a kind of a bit of a meditation posture. And I'm going to read a poem by Sangharaskshita. You'll have heard it already if you came this morning. I'm going to read a poem by Sangharaskshita, and then I'm going to start the Shakyamuni mantra. And then during the mantra, do just come and make offerings. You can make offerings of incense to the Buddha. So yeah, you can do that. And then once the mantra dies out, really do just kind of tune into that silence at the end when the mantra dies out. Really tune into that silence. And then after I've rung a bell to mark the end of the class, we'll then all leave this room in silence as well. Don't worry about putting your mats and cushions away. We'll leave this room in silence and we'll say goodbye outside in the foyer. Okay. Whether within his mind dark forces rolled, wave-like along, and dashed their bitter spume at his enlightened dawn skies, blue and gold, or whether, like a bank of clouds that loom on the horizon's verge, presaging storm, dark Mara and his host embattled came, with many a fearful face and hideous form, on monsters mounted, panoplied in flame, I know not. Fact or symbol, all I know, or care to know, is that the arrowy showers, the hard-flung spears and javelins of the foe, touching his halo's edge, were turned to flowers that rained all night beneath the Bodhi tree, as though in adoration, or as though in homage to his supreme victory. Flowers of the earth, or thought flowers. All I know is that compassion, sun-like, can transmute our hate not only into flowers, but fruit. Muni, Muni, Mahamuni, Shakyamuni, Sadhu. 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 Muni, Muni, Mahamuni, leaving quietly when you're ready.